What if the story of human civilization didn't begin in Sumer, Egypt, or the Indus Valley, but in an age so old that even memory itself refuses to hold it? What if the first teachers of humanity were not kings, nor priests, nor wandering sages, but luminous beings who walked the earth long before the first stone temple rose from the dust? For generations we were taught that writing began with merchants, astronomy began with farmers, and architecture began with necessity. But what if these were only the faint shadows of a far older inheritance, fragments of a knowledge system deliberately obscured, encoded, and buried beneath layers of myth? There exists a name whispered across continents and millennia, a figure who appears in stories separated by thousands of miles, yet speaking with a single voice. A being who claims to have witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations forgotten by time. A keeper of emerald-colored tablets said to contain the blueprint of human evolution itself. That name is Thoth. Before we dive deeper, ignite that like button and prepare for the revelations to come. Tell me in the comments where you're listening from, what time it is there. And as always with our videos, the visuals are here to add context, but they aren't necessary to follow along. Thank you for always having our back. Prepare yourself, and let's dive in. From the moment ancient scribes first carved symbols into stone, there were rumors, quiet, persistent rumors, that humanity did not invent its earliest knowledge. Instead, it was said to have been given, transferred like a torch, passed from an older race to a younger one. Those whispers rarely made it into official histories, yet they surfaced everywhere, in Egyptian temple walls, in Greek philosophical traditions, in Arab alchemical manuscripts, and in the forgotten fragments of pre-dynastic lore. They all pointed toward a single luminous figure, a being who arrived in an age before kings wore crowns and before desert sands buried entire epochs. They called him many names across different lands: Tahuti, Hermes, the Twice-Born. But the oldest name that clings to him is Thoth. And when you look closely at the puzzles scattered across the ancient world, it becomes increasingly difficult to believe he was merely a myth. The earliest depictions of this enigmatic figure show him cloaked in an otherworldly calm, holding tools no ordinary human of that era should have recognized. The palette of writing, the rod of measurement, and a strange object often mistaken for a simple scroll, but believed by some scholars to be an encoded repository of geometric knowledge. Civilizations that should not have known each other repeated the same idea, that Thoth was not simply a god of writing, but the architect of reality's hidden grammar. The being who taught humanity how to think mathematically, symbolically, and cosmically. In Egypt, he was the one who measured the heavens and guided the builders of pharaonic monuments. In later Greek traditions, he became Hermes Trismegistus, the thrice-great master whose teachings would echo through Hermetic philosophy and Renaissance alchemy. But hidden beneath these transformations lies an earlier presence, one that feels too ancient, too deliberate to dismiss. It begins with the Emerald Tablets, a collection of writings long surrounded by controversy, debate, and fascination. Some claim they are medieval forgeries. Others insist they contain fragments of older, lost material. And then there are those who believe something far more radical, that the tablets preserve a voice from a civilization predating the earliest dynasties of Egypt by thousands upon thousands of years. The most striking thing is not the content itself, though it is deeply cryptic, but the way it is written. It speaks not like a storyteller, and not like a priest offering metaphors. It speaks with the calm authority of someone who has seen entire cycles of Earth's history rise and fall. Someone who views civilizations the way we view seasons. In one section, the narrator, said to be Thoth, claims to have ruled in the age of a mighty empire that existed long before the lands we now call Egypt took shape. He describes the fall of a vast kingdom buried by cataclysm and the subsequent migration of survivors who carried pieces of a forgotten science into new lands. These passages have been dismissed as symbolic, yet they align eerily with global myths of a great flood, a vanished golden age, and a continent swallowed by oceans. When you compare these stories, from Mesopotamia, from Mesoamerica, from ancient India, from Aboriginal Australia, the patterns start to converge. A highly advanced culture, a sudden destruction, a scattering of survivors who become the seed teachers of later civilizations. The Emerald Tablets present this idea with unsettling directness, as if expecting the reader to already know. What makes the tablets even more intriguing is their language, not just what they say, but how they say it. They describe forces of energy, resonance, vibration, and polarity with a clarity that feels shockingly modern. They hint at a structure of the universe where consciousness and matter are intertwined, where creation is not an event, but a continual process driven by intention and alignment. These concepts mirror principles found in quantum physics, but they also echo ancient spiritual systems from across the globe. Yet here, they appear on a set of supposed stone-like plates claimed to be thousands of years older than the first Pythagorean school. They read like pieces of an instruction manual for a universe designed by a mind far older than ours. And this raises an unavoidable question. Where did the author get this knowledge? If Thoth is a fictional voice, then the writer responsible for these ideas lived in a world with no telescopes, no microscopes, no advanced mathematics, yet somehow possessed a framework that fits astonishingly well with the language of modern physics and metaphysics. If Thoth is a symbolic persona, representing an ancient priesthood, then that priesthood possessed an intellectual inheritance that modern historians cannot account for. But if the voice is truly what the legends suggest, an ancient being who survived the fall of a forgotten civilization, then the Emerald Tablets might be one of the oldest surviving transmissions of knowledge humanity ever received. Imagine traveling back to the earliest days of pre-dynastic Egypt, long before hieroglyphs adorned temple walls. Picture small communities living along the Nile, surviving through farming, fishing, and simple crafts. Into this world, according to legend, came a group of strangers, tall, radiant, intelligent beyond comprehension. They did not conquer through force. They shaped society gently, teaching astronomy, medicine, writing, architecture. The myths say these beings raised the children of men to knowledge. In the tablets, Thoth claims he was one of these migrants, bringing fragments of the lost teachings of the ancient mother civilization. The idea sounds fantastical, yet archaeological anomalies continue to mount. Sudden leaps in Egyptian architecture, sudden mastery of celestial alignments, sudden appearance of written language without a clear developmental path. These shifts do not resemble slow cultural evolution. They look like someone flipped a switch. Even more curious is the global spread of similar myths. In Mesoamerica, Quetzalcoatl appears as a feathered serpent teacher who brings writing, astronomy, and agriculture. In ancient India, the Nagas are described as semi-divine beings who taught advanced knowledge. In Greece, Hermes is the messenger between realms, the bringer of sacred wisdom. In Sumer, Enki is the wise teacher who guides humanity. Different names, different imagery, same archetype. An advanced being who arrives after a cataclysm to rebuild civilization. The Emerald Tablets could be the missing link in this global puzzle. The artifact that ties together scattered memories of a time before time. There is a particular passage in the tablets where Thoth describes descending into the Hall of Amenti, a mysterious chamber said to lie deep within the earth. There, he speaks of lying in a sarcophagus-like container to renew his life, extending his existence far beyond the human lifespan. He describes this process with the detachment of someone accustomed to shifting between dimensions or states of consciousness. Some interpret it as symbolism for spiritual rebirth. Others believe it refers to a physical technology capable of altering biological patterns. If this description is literal, then Thoth was not merely a sage. He was a being operating on a level we would consider supernatural or extraterrestrial. But the most haunting part is his claim of longevity. The tablets describe lifespans measured not in decades, but in centuries, even millennia. They recount civilizations older than our earliest known settlements. They mention gateways to other realms, the hidden structure of space-time, and a cosmic battle between forces of light and darkness. Some readers dismiss these sections as metaphors, yet they carry the tone of eyewitness testimony, not allegory. And when you place these statements alongside global myths, the Sumerian king list with reigns of thousands of years, the antediluvian patriarchs of the Hebrew Bible, the yuga cycles of Hindu cosmology, they begin to sound less like fantasy and more like fragments of a shared prehistoric memory. There is another layer to this mystery, one that lies not in the text itself, but in its influence. The Emerald Tablets have been cited by alchemists, secret societies, Renaissance philosophers, and occult scholars for centuries. They appear in the writings of Isaac Newton, who meticulously translated them. They inspired the Rosicrucians, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, and countless esoteric traditions. How is it that a text supposedly from the ancient world manages to echo perfectly through every age of mysticism and metaphysics? Why do thinkers as diverse as Newton, Nostradamus, and early Islamic scholars treat the tablets not as myth, but as a genuine source of wisdom? The simplest answer is unsettling. Because the knowledge within them speaks with a clarity and universality that transcends time periods. But what if this knowledge was meant to survive cataclysms? What if the tablets were engineered as a kind of indestructible data storage device, not just metaphorically emerald, but literally composed of a substance resilient to fire, water, and decay? Some legends claim the tablets were forged from a crystalline material infused with a frequency that preserves information beyond the lifespan of any civilization. If true, this would explain their appearance in multiple historical periods, always resurfacing when humanity reaches a moment of intellectual or spiritual threshold. And then there is the question of why such knowledge would be hidden. If Thoth and his companions were genuinely survivors of an earlier world, they might have lived through a disaster triggered by misused science, corrupted power, or cosmic forces beyond human control. It would make sense that they would encode their teachings in layers of symbolism, releasing only what later civilizations were prepared to handle. Perhaps they feared a repeat of the catastrophe that destroyed their homeland. Perhaps they understood that knowledge without wisdom becomes a weapon. Or perhaps they were simply following a cycle, revealing pieces of the truth at specific intervals in human development. The idea may sound speculative, but the patterns of history suggest that civilizations often rise not in smooth arcs, but in sudden jumps, like students receiving new lessons from a hidden teacher. One cannot ignore the architectural clues. The temples dedicated to Thoth, though many are now in ruins, show a precision and astronomical alignment that baffles modern engineers. Some structures appear to encode mathematical constants thousands of years before their official discovery. At Hermopolis, the city sacred to Thoth, archaeological layers suggest an abrupt emergence of cultural sophistication, and in the design of the later Alexandrian library, said to preserve Thoth's wisdom, we find echoes of an older tradition obsessed with cataloging all cosmic knowledge. Why would such structures be built unless someone believed they were safeguarding the remnants of humanity's first curriculum? Most mysterious of all is the persistent belief across Egypt that Thoth did not die. Priests claimed he merely stepped into another realm, promising to return when humanity reached a new stage of understanding. This promise is woven into the Emerald Tablets, where he speaks of hiding himself in the deep chambers of earth, waiting for the right moment to awaken. Whether symbolic or literal, this idea reveals a world view where death is not the end, but a transition to another frequency of existence. And if the tablets encode this understanding, then they are not simply philosophical works. They are a record of a science so advanced it appears magical to us. As you follow the threads scattered through ancient history, you begin to sense that the story of Thoth and the Emerald Tablets is not just a mythological curiosity, but a keyhole into a forgotten era. Each temple carving, each tablet fragment, each legend preserved through oral tradition becomes a clue pointing to an ancient teacher who shaped the earliest foundations of civilization. And the more you examine these clues, the more that conventional timelines feel incomplete, like a book missing its first chapters. The tablets describe a world where knowledge was not discovered but restored, where human consciousness was guided by beings who understood the inner workings of reality. And if even a fraction of what the tablets claim is true, then humanity has been living inside the shadow of an older epoch without realizing it. For generations, scholars and explorers have searched for the origins of the Emerald Tablets, but the deeper the investigation goes, the more the trail dissolves into a haze of contradictions, impossibilities, and anomalies that seem deliberately woven into the fabric of history. The strange thing is not that the tablets appear in multiple eras. It is that they resurface precisely at moments when humanity undergoes a dramatic shift in consciousness or capability, as though timed to influence particular thresholds of development. Their presence in the ancient world is like an echo from a vanished age, an age where knowledge was not merely accumulated, but inherited from a civilization that wielded power over matter and mind in ways we are only beginning to rediscover. To understand this properly, one must first step back from the familiar timelines and consider a possibility that upends the entire framework of early human history, that the rise of civilization was not gradual at all, but cyclical, guided by beings who watched humanity move through ascents and collapses like phases of a cosmic curriculum. This idea is reflected everywhere in Egyptian lore. The priests of Heliopolis insisted that the sacred wisdom of their temples was not originally of human origin. They described a lineage of divine teachers who reigned in mythical epochs before the first pharaohs, beings who possessed extraordinary longevity and mastery over the principles of life. Among them, Thoth was revered not just as a scribe, but as the architect of cosmic order, the one who measured the heavens, balanced the forces of creation, and preserved the blueprint of knowledge across ages. The notion that he arrived after a catastrophic event is deeply embedded in their myths. According to the temple priests, Thoth did not rise from within their lands. He came to them from somewhere else, bringing with him the remnants of a destroyed kingdom whose memory survived only in fragments. The emerald tablets amplify this theme with startling clarity. They describe a time before the deserts of Egypt existed, before the Nile carved its course, before the stars occupied the positions we know today. They speak of a great continent on the other side of the world, one ruled by a highly advanced civilization known simply as the Children of Light. This civilization, said to be illuminated both physically and spiritually, possessed technologies and sciences that would appear supernatural to us. They mastered energy, resonance, and dimensional travel. They constructed temples from crystalline materials capable of storing vast amounts of information. They lived in harmony with cosmic cycles and understood the deeper mechanics of existence. And then, as the story goes, they were nearly wiped out by a cataclysm, one so devastating that only a handful of survivors escaped to distant lands. Thoth claims to have been one of these survivors. He describes leaving his homeland aboard a vessel capable of traversing both sea and sky, carrying with him a group of followers and the knowledge needed to rebuild civilization. When they arrived in the land that would one day become Egypt, they encountered primitive tribes struggling to understand the world around them. Thoth and his companions set about teaching them the arts of writing, astronomy, medicine, and sacred geometry. They taught them to build with stone, to align their structures with the heavens, and to preserve their knowledge through symbols. This story, though incredible, aligns shockingly well with archaeological findings. The sudden appearance of advanced architecture during the early dynastic period, the precise astronomical alignments of temples and pyramids, and the inexplicable mathematical sophistication encoded into ancient structures. One might argue these parallels are coincidence, but the consistency of the myths is too precise to dismiss. Civilizations separated by oceans and millennia describe the same sequence: an advanced race, a catastrophic fall, survivors who become the teachers of a new world. Some of these cultures place their golden age in a time before the last glacial maximum, suggesting a memory older than the last major upheavals of Earth's climate. It is as if humanity is haunted by a collective memory of something we once knew but lost. And in that memory, Thoth stands as the figure who bridges the gap. What makes this even more mysterious is the manner in which Thoth describes his own nature. The tablets portray him not as a mortal man, but as a being of consciousness who learned to operate across multiple dimensions of existence. He speaks of traveling between the worlds, stepping through gateways of energy that allowed him to move between the physical plane and other realms. He describes immortality not as a gift, but as a mastery over the frequencies of life, a skill acquired through alignment with cosmic laws. These descriptions sound esoteric, yet they have parallels in modern theoretical physics, which proposes that the universe is composed of layered dimensions vibrating at different frequencies. If Thoth truly understood how to navigate these layers, then his ability to live for millennia and survive cataclysms becomes less fantastical and more like an advanced application of principles we are only now beginning to theorize. There is a peculiar detail within the tablets that adds weight to this interpretation. Thoth describes being tasked by the Lords of Cycles to preserve knowledge from his dying homeland. These lords, often interpreted as higher dimensional beings or guardians of cosmic order, are said to oversee the great cycles of civilization, the rises and falls that shape humanity across tens of thousands of years. They do not intervene directly, but appoint certain individuals to act as carriers of knowledge. Thoth claims he was chosen for this role, entrusted with preserving the secrets of his ancient people and guiding humanity toward its next evolutionary phase. The idea of guardians overseeing cosmic cycles appears in many mythologies. In Hindu tradition, the Yuga cycles are monitored by celestial beings. In Greek tradition, the ages of man are overseen by divine forces. In indigenous lore, time is circular, guided by spirits who maintain balance. These parallels suggest that the concept of cosmic guardianship is not unique to one culture, but a global remembrance of an ancient worldview. One of the most striking elements in Thoth's writings is his description of the Hall of Amenti. This chamber, he says, lies deep beneath the surface of the earth, carved in an age before the great cataclysms. It is inhabited by powerful beings who preserve life-giving energies and maintain the vibrational stability of our world. Thoth claims to have spent long periods in Amenti, entering a state of suspended animation to renew his vitality. Some interpret this as metaphor, but the way he describes the process feels shockingly literal, almost technological. He speaks of energy chambers, crystal-laden sarcophagi, and a harmonic resonance that preserves the soul-body connection. These descriptions align with modern concepts in alternative science, such as frequency-based healing and vibrational energy fields. Whether metaphor or memory, the consistency of these descriptions points to a deeper reality that ancient cultures may have understood intuitively. But perhaps the most haunting question is why the Emerald Tablets were written at all. If Thoth was part of an advanced civilization, why encode his teachings into cryptic verses? Why not record his knowledge in clear, direct terms? The answer may lie in the nature of the knowledge itself. The tablets reveal a worldview where energy and consciousness are inseparable, where the universe responds to intention, and where the mind acts as a tool capable of shaping reality. Such knowledge, in the wrong hands, could be catastrophic. It would make sense, then, for Thoth to encode his teachings in layers, accessible only to those who possess the insight to understand them. This method of layered symbolism appears in many ancient traditions. The Vedic hymns of India, the esoteric practices of Tibetan Buddhism, the alchemical texts of medieval Europe. Everywhere you look, humanity's oldest knowledge is wrapped in metaphor, protected by myth, and hidden in plain sight. The Emerald Tablets are perhaps the oldest surviving example of this tradition. As you read the tablets, an unsettling pattern begins to emerge. Thoth repeatedly warns of forces that seek to plunge the world into darkness. He describes ancient entities that feed on human ignorance and suffering, beings that operate from dimensions just beyond our perception. These forces, he says, manipulate power structures, influence leaders, and distort the natural progression of human consciousness. The idea resonates with myths from cultures around the world, the asuras of Hindu tradition, the archons of Gnostic texts, the jinn of Middle Eastern lore, the trickster spirits of indigenous stories. In each case, these beings are described as interfering with the human world, often to maintain control or harvest emotional energy. Thoth's warnings paint a picture of Earth as a battleground between forces of light and darkness, an idea that may sound mystical, but mirrors modern concepts of psychological manipulation and mass influence. What makes these warnings even more troubling is Thoth's insistence that the battle is not physical, but vibrational. He describes darkness not as an enemy army, but as a lower frequency that disrupts higher forms of consciousness. In his words, darkness is disorder, light is order. To maintain clarity and spiritual alignment, one must attune to higher frequencies of thought and intention. This concept resonates with the mystical traditions of nearly every culture and is strikingly similar to modern discussions in quantum consciousness research. If Thoth truly understood how energy and consciousness interact, then his warnings may reflect a sophisticated understanding of psychological and energetic dynamics. The tablets also allude to a hidden chamber beneath the Great Pyramid, a place where the knowledge of the ancients is said to be stored. Thoth hints that he himself helped design the pyramid as a multidimensional device, not just a tomb. He describes it as a portal, a resonant structure aligning Earth with cosmic energies. Modern researchers have found that the pyramid's design encodes advanced mathematics, astronomical alignments, and acoustical properties far beyond what would be expected of a Bronze Age society. If Thoth and his people played a role in its construction, then the Great Pyramid may be a relic of a lost civilization, rather than the culmination of early Egyptian engineering. There are countless questions that swirl around these mysteries, each pointing to the possibility that our understanding of history is incomplete. Why do so many ancient structures exhibit impossible precision? Why do myths from across the world describe beings of light teaching early humans? Why do symbols associated with Thoth, such as the caduceus and the Ankh, appear in cultures separated by oceans? And why do the Emerald Tablets contain knowledge that resonates so deeply with modern scientific discoveries? These questions suggest that what we call myth may, in fact, be a coded memory of an age predating our known history. Some modern theorists propose that Thoth was not an extraterrestrial being in the conventional sense, but a traveler from a parallel dimension, or an advanced human from a prior cycle of civilization. Others believe he belonged to a race of beings who once interacted openly with humanity before retreating into higher realms. Whatever the case, the consistency with which he appears across cultures is impossible to ignore. His teachings form the backbone of Hermeticism, which asserts that the universe operates according to 7 fundamental principles. These principles, mentalism, correspondence, vibration, polarity, rhythm, cause and effect, and gender describe a universe governed by patterns, cycles, and energetic laws. They reflect an understanding that everything is connected, everything is conscious, and everything is in motion. Remarkably, these principles are echoed in modern physics, which reveals that matter is essentially vibrational energy, that particles influence each other across vast distances, and that the universe operates according to predictable oscillations. Thoth's insistence that humanity can ascend to higher states of existence is another theme that resonates across spiritual traditions. He describes a process of inner cultivation, of aligning one's mind with cosmic order, of overcoming fear and ignorance. This process mirrors the spiritual paths of ancient India, the mystical traditions of the Middle East, and the esoteric practices of indigenous cultures. It is as if humanity's spiritual heritage is rooted in a single ancient source, one that predates recorded history and was preserved through a mosaic of myths and rituals. The emerald tablets may be the closest we have to that original source. Though scholars debate their origins, their influence is undeniable. They appear in the libraries of medieval alchemists, the writings of early Christian mystics, and the secret teachings of Renaissance philosophers. They inspired Newton's interest in alchemy and shaped the foundations of Western esotericism. Wherever they surface, they ignite a shift in worldview, as though they carry a frequency that resonates with the deeper layers of human consciousness. And this raises a haunting possibility. What if the emerald tablets are not merely texts, but devices, spiritual technologies designed to activate dormant knowledge within the human mind? If this is true, then the tablets are far more than historical artifacts. They are living portals to a forgotten age, encoded with messages meant for those capable of understanding them. And perhaps Thoth knew that humanity would one day reach a point where it could begin to comprehend their true meaning. There comes a point in tracing the lineage of ancient knowledge when the trail no longer leads outward across continents, but inward, into a labyrinth of symbols, rituals, and encoded language that seems intentionally designed to protect truths too potent for unprepared minds. This is where the legacy of Thoth becomes far more than a story of an ancient teacher or a lost civilization. It becomes a map. Not a map of places, but of processes. A map of how consciousness itself can transform, ascend, and reclaim the knowledge once held by beings who walked the earth long before recorded history. And at the center of this inward journey stands the enigmatic tradition that grew from Thoth's teachings, a tradition that quietly shaped some of the most influential movements in human thought, from early mystery schools to medieval alchemy and beyond. For centuries, the mystery schools of Egypt and Greece were rumored to guard secrets older than their founding civilizations. These schools, shrouded in silence and protected by oaths stronger than any written law, initiated only those who demonstrated profound discipline and mental clarity. Their teachings were said to descend directly from the time when divine beings walked among humans. Their symbols, rituals, and metaphors traced back to a more radiant age, one where the borders between the seen and unseen were not yet sealed. Many of these traditions openly credited Thoth as their originator. They regarded him not only as a mentor, but as the architect of the mystery process itself. In these schools, The emerald tablets were treated not as historical curiosities, but as living documents, blueprints for unlocking the deeper layers of reality. Students trained for years before they were allowed to study even a fragment of the teachings attributed to Thoth. It was believed that to read the tablets without preparation could unbalance the mind, for they encoded principles that dismantle ordinary perception. These teachings were interwoven with the concepts of duality, ascension, and the mastery of inner forces. They taught initiates how to decode the symbolic language of the universe, how to read the hidden patterns that shape matter, energy, and consciousness. This was not philosophy in the abstract sense. It was a science of the unseen. From these mystery schools emerged figures who would shape the intellectual development of entire epochs. Pythagoras, for example, spent many years in Egypt, studying under priests who traced their lineage back to Thoth. What he returned with was not just mathematics, but a vision of numbers as living forces, as the underlying structure of reality. Plato, too, spent time with Egyptian priests, returning with stories of Atlantis and descriptions of a cycle-based cosmos that mirrors the worldview found in the Emerald Tablets. Even the early Christian Gnostics, who sought direct experience of the divine rather than adherence to dogma, echoed Thoth's emphasis on inner knowledge and spiritual ascent. Across centuries and continents, the signature of Thoth can be seen in the movements that challenged conventional understanding and pushed humanity toward deeper insight. But the most direct echo of Thoth's teachings appeared in the form of Hermeticism, a system of knowledge that surfaced in Hellenistic Egypt and became one of the foundational pillars of Western esotericism. The Hermetic texts, said to be written by Hermes Trismegistus, the Greek name for Thoth, describe a universe governed by mental principles, by the correspondence between inner and outer realms, and by the rhythmic cycles of creation. They reveal a structure of reality where the divine mind permeates all things and where humans possess the latent ability to awaken that divine spark within themselves. These ideas are consistent with the Emerald Tablets, suggesting that Hermeticism may be a simplified transmission of the much older teachings Thoth preserved from his lost homeland. Hermeticism spread quietly through the ancient world, influencing philosophers, mystics, and scientists. It shaped the foundations of alchemy, the discipline that sought not merely to transform metals, but to transform consciousness itself. For the alchemists, the philosopher's stone was not a chemical substance, but a state of perfected being, an awakened consciousness aligned with the fundamental principles of the universe. This pursuit mirrors Thoth's insistence that mastery of the self is the first step toward mastery of reality. And it is no coincidence that many alchemists claimed to work under the guidance of Hermes Trismegistus. They believed that the Emerald Tablets contained the key to the great work, encoded in metaphors that conceal as much as they reveal. What makes these connections even more striking is that the core of Hermeticism, the 7 Hermetic principles, reads like an accessible summary of the deeper teachings found in the Emerald Tablets. Mentalism declares that the universe is mind. Correspondence teaches that the microcosm reflects the macrocosm. Vibration reveals that all things are energy in motion. Polarity shows that opposites are extremes of the same essence. Rhythm describes cycles of creation and dissolution. Cause and effect underscores the orderliness of the cosmos. Gender speaks of the creative duality inherent in all things. These principles, which form the backbone of Hermetic thought, are direct reflections of the ideas Thoth articulates in the tablets. They provide a simple entry point into a complex system of ancient knowledge. But there is an even older layer beneath Hermeticism, one that predates written history and appears in oral traditions around the world. In ancient India, the Upanishads describe a universe of consciousness and energy, shaped by vibration and intention. In Tibet, the Bon tradition speaks of luminous beings teaching the early inhabitants of the plateau. In the Americas, the Hopi remember the return of the blue star Kachina, a teacher from a previous world age. In Australia, Aboriginal peoples speak of the sky heroes who shaped the land and imparted sacred laws. Everywhere, there is a memory of teachers who were not entirely human, who arrived in times of upheaval, who taught humanity how to rise from devastation. These stories, separated by geography and language, share the same structural narrative: a fall, a rebirth, a transmission of knowledge. And at the center of this cycle stands a figure who may have worn different names but embodied the same essence. Whether called Thoth, Hermes, Quetzalcoatl, Viracocha, or Odin, the archetype is unmistakable. A luminous teacher, a wanderer from an earlier world, a guide who preserves memory across cycles of time. The Emerald Tablets offer the most explicit account of what such beings may have taught and why. They present a cosmology that describes the universe as a living field of consciousness. They reveal a psychology that treats the mind as a gateway to higher realms. They outline an ethics based on alignment with cosmic order. They describe a path of ascension that mirrors the practices of mystical traditions across the world. But what truly sets the tablets apart is their description of dimensional travel. Thoth speaks of moving between planes of existence, of stepping through vibrational gateways that separate our world from others. He describes how certain frequencies act as locks, preventing access to higher realms until one has mastered the corresponding inner state. These descriptions resemble modern theories of multidimensional physics, which propose that our universe contains layers of reality invisible to human perception. They also echo shamanic practices from indigenous cultures, where rituals involving rhythm, breath, and altered states of consciousness allow practitioners to traverse the boundaries between worlds. In every case, the idea is the same. Reality is layered, and the ability to move between those layers requires mastery of the self. This mastery is not merely intellectual, it is experiential, practical, and transformative. Thoth describes exercises involving breath, intention, and visualization, practices that mirror modern meditation methods and yogic disciplines. He speaks of the need to harmonize one's inner frequencies with the frequencies of higher realms. He describes how fear collapses the vibrational field, limiting perception, while courage expands it. He insists that consciousness shapes the reality it perceives, a notion mirrored in quantum experiments where observation affects outcome. These parallels suggest that the ancient teachings were not mystical metaphors, but direct transmissions of a science of consciousness long forgotten. One of the most haunting passages in the tablets describes a period in human prehistory when dark forces entered the world through rifted spaces, exploiting a cosmic vulnerability created by the fall of Thoth's homeland. These entities, he warns, possess the ability to influence human thought, sowing fear and discord. They feed on emotional chaos and seek to prevent humanity from awakening to its higher nature. Thoth describes encountering these beings in the lower dimensions and battling them to protect humanity. His descriptions match remarkably with the archons of Gnostic lore, the asuras of Indian scripture, and the shadow entities described in shamanic traditions. Whether literal or symbolic, the message is clear. Humanity exists within a dynamic field of forces, both uplifting and destructive, and the battle is fought not with weapons, but with consciousness. This idea of a vibrational battle resonates with the concept of the veil, a term used in many esoteric traditions to describe the barrier between ordinary perception and higher awareness. Thoth suggests that this veil was once thinner, that ancient humans possessed greater intuitive faculties, and that the great cataclysm thickened the veil, limiting human potential. The mystery schools sought to pierce this veil through disciplined practice, restoring the lost faculties of perception, and the emerald tablets served as their guide, offering encoded instructions for awakening dormant capacities. Over time, as civilizations rose and fell, the teachings scattered. Some were preserved in temples, others were hidden in manuscripts, still others were embedded in allegories, myths, and rituals. When the Library of Alexandria burned, countless texts attributed to Thoth were lost forever. Yet the core teachings survived, carried by travelers, scholars, and mystics into the Middle East, Europe, and Asia. They resurfaced during the Islamic Golden Age, influencing alchemists and philosophers who sought to reconcile science with spirituality. They appeared again during the Renaissance, shaping the minds of thinkers who laid the groundwork for modern science. Everywhere they appeared, they ignited breakthroughs, as though acting as catalysts for intellectual and spiritual evolution. What is remarkable is that the teachings attributed to Thoth remain coherent across thousands of years and dozens of cultures. They are built on a foundation of principles that explain not only the physical world, but the inner world of emotion, thought, and perception. They reveal a universe where energy and consciousness are intertwined, where intention shapes reality, and where humans possess the potential to ascend to higher states of being. These ideas may sound mystical, but modern research into fields such as quantum mechanics, neuroplasticity, and consciousness studies increasingly suggests that they are grounded in deeper truths about the nature of reality. Yet the ultimate question remains unanswered. Who was Thoth, truly? Was he a survivor of a lost civilization, a traveler from another dimension, a being from a higher plane of existence? Or was he the collective memory of an ancient lineage of teachers who guided humanity through the darkness following a global cataclysm? The Emerald Tablets provide hints, but no definitive answer. Perhaps they were never meant to. Perhaps the identity of Thoth is less important than the knowledge he preserved. What is clear is that the tablets were designed to survive the rise and fall of empires. Their teachings are timeless, structured in a way that speaks equally to the ancient mind and the modern one. They do not rely on cultural context, but on universal principles that transcend time and place. And they continue to appear just when humanity seems poised for another shift, as though responding to an unseen rhythm guiding the evolution of consciousness. As you follow these teachings into their deeper layers, the world around you begins to look different. History feels less like a straight line and more like a spiral, cycling through ages of knowledge and forgetfulness. The monuments of the ancient world begin to resemble markers left by teachers from another era. The symbols etched into stone become codes waiting to be deciphered. And the presence of Thoth feels less like myth and more like the faint echo of a voice that has guided humanity for longer than we can comprehend. If the emerald tablets are indeed the surviving fragments of a much older, much grander tradition, then we are not merely studying ancient history. We are recovering the inheritance of a forgotten age, one that may hold the key to humanity's future evolution. There is a moment when immersing yourself in the mysteries attributed to Thoth, when the ancient world begins to feel less like a distant chapter of history and more like a living shadow cast across the present. The deeper you step into the stories surrounding the emerald tablets, the more you realize that they do not merely describe the past. They describe patterns repeating across ages. They outline a blueprint, not only for how civilizations rise, but for how they collapse. And once you begin seeing those patterns, they become impossible to ignore. That is the unsettling truth at the heart of this ancient legacy. The idea that we are not living in a linear timeline, but in a cycle, one that has played out before and may play out again. The emerald tablets speak of an era when human beings possessed a higher level of consciousness, one that allowed them to perceive energies and dimensions invisible to us today. This heightened perception made them capable of extraordinary feats: telepathic communication, energy healing, and manipulation of subtle forces. According to the tablets, these abilities were taught by luminous beings who arrived in a time of global devastation to guide humanity back toward balance. But as the ages passed, human consciousness began to dim. The tablets describe this decline as a kind of fall, not from grace but from resonance. Humans lost their attunement to higher frequencies, becoming preoccupied with material concerns and ego-driven desires. This shift weakened their connection to the unseen realms and made them vulnerable to manipulation by lower dimensional entities. This decline, Thoth suggests, was not random. It was part of a cycle that repeats across vast epochs. Each cycle begins with a golden age of elevated consciousness, followed by a gradual descent into materialism, conflict, and ignorance. Eventually, the imbalance becomes so great that a global cataclysm resets the world, wiping the slate clean. Survivors then rebuild with the guidance of advanced beings, and the cycle begins anew. This idea echoes the ancient Hindu concept of yugas, where the world moves through stages of spiritual light and darkness, culminating in periodic destruction and renewal. It also mirrors the myths of the Maya, who believed the world had been created and destroyed multiple times. Even the Greeks told stories of successive ages: gold, silver, bronze, and iron, each marked by rising and falling levels of virtue and wisdom. The emerald tablets claim that Thoth lived through at least one of these cycles. He describes witnessing the fall of his homeland, a civilization of immense knowledge brought down by internal corruption and external forces. He recounts traveling to new lands to preserve the remnants of that knowledge, establishing mystery schools and preparing humanity for the next ascent. His writing carries the tone of someone who has seen civilizations rise to unimaginable heights and collapse into ashes. He speaks not with anger or regret, but with the weary wisdom of someone familiar with the rhythms of cosmic time. This concept of cycles takes on a darker dimension when Thoth describes the forces responsible for the decline of consciousness. He speaks of beings who operate from the shadows, manipulating human thought and emotion. These entities, he says, dwell in the lower dimensions and feed on fear, anger, and chaos. They influence human leaders, sow division, and distort spiritual teachings. Thoth describes them as serpents of darkness, though not in the literal sense. They are energetic parasites, capable of attaching themselves to individuals and nations, amplifying destructive tendencies. This idea appears in multiple traditions. The archons of Gnostic texts, who manipulate humanity through illusion, the asuras of Hinduism, who disrupt cosmic balance, the jinn of Middle Eastern lore, capable of influencing human desire, and the trickster spirits of indigenous cultures, who lead people astray. According to Thoth, these forces gain power in times of spiritual decline. When humanity loses touch with higher realms, the veil between dimensions thickens, making it difficult for humans to perceive the presence of these entities. As a result, people mistake their own fears and ambitions for their true desires, not realizing they are being influenced by unseen forces. This dynamic leads to corruption, conflict, and the eventual collapse of civilizations. Thoth describes this process with unsettling clarity, as though outlining the psychological anatomy of a world on the brink. In contrast to these forces of darkness, the tablets describe beings of light who work to preserve cosmic order. These higher dimensional entities, which Thoth calls the Lords of Light, guide individuals and societies toward balance. They do not intervene directly, but offer wisdom and energetic support. They are present in moments of insight, inspiration, and spiritual awakening. Many ancient cultures speak of such beings: the Devas in Indian tradition, the Shining Ones in Irish lore, the angels of Abrahamic religions, the luminous ancestors of indigenous peoples. These beings are described as protectors, teachers, and guardians. Yet even they cannot prevent the cycles of rise and fall, for those cycles are woven into the fabric of the cosmos. The Emerald Tablets imply that these cycles are not punishments, but learning processes. Humanity evolves by moving through different states of consciousness, experiencing both harmony and discord. Each cycle teaches lessons that prepare the soul for higher realms. Thoth suggests that individuals can accelerate their evolution through disciplined practice, aligning themselves with cosmic laws regardless of the state of the world around them. This is the central purpose of his teachings: to guide humanity toward mastery of the self so that it can transcend the cycle of rise and fall. The tablets outline several methods for achieving this mastery. They describe practices related to breath, attention, and mental discipline. They emphasize the importance of inner stillness, as it allows the practitioner to perceive subtle energies. They speak of aligning one's intentions with the flow of cosmic energy, and of cultivating all aspects of the self: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. Though written in symbolic language, these teachings resemble the practices of yoga, meditation, qigong, and other spiritual traditions. They also mirror modern psychological techniques for managing thought and emotion. But the most intriguing practice described in the tablets relates to light. Thoth emphasizes the importance of attuning oneself to light, both literal and metaphysical. He describes meditative techniques for drawing light into the body, expanding awareness, and dissolving fear. He speaks of light as the fundamental substance of the universe, the source of life and consciousness. This concept resonates with modern physics, which reveals that matter is ultimately composed of energy, and that light plays a fundamental role in the structure of the cosmos. It also echoes mystical traditions that describe enlightenment as a state of inner radiance. What makes these teachings even more compelling is their connection to ancient monuments. The emerald tablets hint that the pyramids, temples, and stone structures of the ancient world were not merely ceremonial or political. They were energetic devices designed to interact with cosmic forces. Thoth claims to have played a role in their construction, guiding the builders to create structures that amplify and distribute energy. He suggests that these monuments were part of a global network aligned with celestial bodies and ley lines, forming a grid that stabilized Earth's energy field. The idea may sound fantastical, yet many ancient sites share remarkable alignments with the stars, the solstices, and each other. They also exhibit advanced engineering that defies the capabilities of known ancient societies. The Great Pyramid, in particular, has captivated researchers for centuries. Its dimensions encode mathematical constants such as pi and the golden ratio. Its chambers resonate at specific frequencies. Its shafts align with star systems central to ancient cosmology. Some theorists propose that it once functioned as a vibrational device capable of influencing consciousness. This idea aligns with Thoth's descriptions of the pyramid as a portal, a structure designed to connect the physical and metaphysical realms. Whether or not this interpretation is literal, the pyramid's design suggests an understanding of energy and geometry far beyond what traditional history can explain. But the question that lingers beneath all of this is the same one that has haunted scholars for generations. Where did this knowledge come from? If the teachings of the Emerald Tablets are echoes of a lost civilization, then that civilization must have possessed a level of sophistication rivaling or surpassing our own. Thoth describes such a society, a realm of crystalline cities, advanced technologies, and harmony with cosmic forces. He portrays a world where consciousness was understood as a fundamental force integrated into daily life. This world, he says, was lost in a great cataclysm, its memory preserved only in myths and tablets. Many ancient cultures describe such a cataclysm, a flood, an earthquake, a celestial event that reshaped the world. Geological evidence suggests that Earth has indeed experienced sudden and dramatic changes, including comet impacts, pole shifts, and rapid climate events. The Younger Dryas period, for example, was marked by catastrophic cooling and widespread destruction. Some researchers believe it may have been triggered by a comet impact, wiping out advanced coastal civilizations. If such a civilization existed, its survivors might have migrated inland, bringing their knowledge with them, a scenario that mirrors Thoth's own account. This possibility raises profound questions about human origins. Were we the first advanced species on Earth? Or were we preceded by others whose traces have been lost to time? Thoth suggests that humanity is far older than conventional archaeology acknowledges. He describes cycles stretching back hundreds of thousands of years, with civilizations rising and falling in harmony with cosmic rhythms. This view aligns with alternative theories, suggesting that human development may have begun much earlier than currently believed. The tablets also describe advanced technologies that seem beyond anything known in the ancient world. Thoth speaks of devices that manipulate gravity, harness energy from the earth, and project consciousness across dimensions. He describes vehicles that travel through the air and beneath the sea, powered not by combustion, but by resonance. These descriptions resemble modern concepts in zero-point energy, electromagnetism, and quantum physics. While mainstream science has yet to confirm such technologies, the parallels are striking. If these technologies existed, their remnants may still lie hidden beneath sand, sea, or jungle. Archaeologists have discovered ruins of ancient cities submerged off the coasts of India, Japan, and the Mediterranean. They have uncovered evidence of advanced engineering in sites such as Machu Picchu, Göbekli Tepe, and Pumapunku. These sites defy traditional explanations, suggesting the presence of knowledge far older than previously assumed. It is possible that future discoveries may reveal more clues, bringing us closer to understanding the truth behind Thoth's accounts. What is clear is that the Emerald Tablets are not merely records of ancient events. They are invitations, guides for those who seek to awaken dormant potential within themselves. They offer a path toward higher consciousness, greater understanding, and deeper alignment with the forces that shape the universe. Thoth emphasizes that this path is open to all, regardless of age, culture, or background. It requires only dedication, humility, and the willingness to look beyond the limitations of ordinary perception. The tablets make it clear that the true power of humanity lies not in external technologies, but in the mastery of the self. They describe a future where humans reclaim their lost abilities, transcend the cycle of rise and fall, and join the ranks of higher beings. This vision may seem idealistic, yet it reflects a universal longing found in cultures across the world, the desire to evolve, to awaken, to remember who we truly are. And if Thoth's teachings are to be believed, that future is not only possible, but inevitable. There is a strange sensation that arises when you realize the deeper you travel into the lineage of Thoth, the more the world around you begins to resemble a puzzle whose pieces were scattered intentionally. Small anomalies that once seemed unrelated begin to align with uncanny precision. Symbols etched in temples thousands of miles apart suddenly carry a shared resonance. Rituals from civilizations that never met echo the same sequence of gestures, breaths, and invocations. And as you trace these parallels back through time, a peculiar picture begins to form. One that suggests humanity has been living inside a story far older and far more deliberate than anything our history books acknowledge. This is the moment when the teachings attributed to Thoth shift from ancient mythology into something unsettlingly alive, something that pulses beneath the surface of the present day. The Emerald Tablets speak of a network, an energetic grid that once spanned the entire Earth. This grid, Thoth claims, was constructed by a coalition of advanced beings long before the rise of modern civilizations. They placed monumental structures on strategically chosen points, each aligned with celestial bodies and harmonized with Earth's natural frequencies. These monuments were not merely temples or tombs. They were nodes in a vast system designed to stabilize the planet's energetic field, enhance human consciousness, and serve as portals to higher dimensions. Thoth describes these structures as temples of light, built with materials infused with vibrational properties capable of amplifying the human mind. In essence, they were spiritual technologies, tools that allowed ancient humans to access states of awareness that now seem impossible. But what is most astonishing is that many of these structures still exist. The Great Pyramid of Giza, the ziggurats of Mesopotamia, the megaliths of Europe, the pyramids of Central America, the stone circles of Africa, and the temples of Asia all share mathematical and astronomical features far too precise to be coincidence. They align with solstices, equinoxes, and star systems with meticulous accuracy. Some scholars have suggested that these alignments were used for agricultural or ceremonial purposes, but such explanations barely scratch the surface. The precision, the scale, and the global distribution of these structures suggest a far more advanced understanding of Earth's geometry and cosmic cycles than any early society should have possessed. The Emerald Tablets offer a different interpretation. These monuments were built to preserve and transmit the knowledge of a lost civilization. According to Thoth, his people used vibrational technologies capable of altering the density of stone, allowing them to move massive blocks with ease. They carved symbols that resonate at specific frequencies, creating gateways for communication between dimensions. They designed chambers that concentrate energy, enabling advanced forms of healing and spiritual transformation. Such claims may seem fantastical, yet modern science has begun to uncover clues that support elements of this narrative. Researchers have discovered that some ancient stones contain quartz crystals, which are known to have piezoelectric properties, meaning they can generate electricity when placed under pressure. Others have found that sound can reduce the weight of objects under specific conditions. While we are far from replicating the feats described by Thoth, the possibility that ancient cultures possessed an understanding of vibrational physics is not as far-fetched as it once seemed. These monuments, Thoth suggests, were built during a window of time when the veil between dimensions was thinner, when humans possessed abilities more akin to intuition than logic. He describes a world where individuals could sense energy fields with the same clarity that we perceive sunlight. In this world, temples served as training grounds for priests who learned to navigate the astral realms, communicate telepathically, and harness the power of intention. The Emerald Tablets hint at a hierarchical structure within these temples, where initiates progressed through stages of mastery, each stage unlocking deeper layers of understanding. The highest initiates were capable of withdrawing their consciousness from their bodies, traveling through the planes, and returning with knowledge from realms beyond time. The mystery schools of Egypt, Greece, and other ancient civilizations inherited fragments of these practices. Their rituals, though shrouded in symbolism, reflect a deep understanding of breath, sound, and visualization. They treated the human body as a vessel of light, capable of being tuned like an instrument. They taught that the mind shapes reality, that thought precedes form, and that consciousness is the primary force behind creation. These ideas were echoed in the philosophies of Pythagoras, who believed that the universe is built on numerical harmony, and in the teachings of Plato, who described reality as a shadow of higher forms. They also appear in the esoteric traditions of the Middle East, Asia, and the Americas. Everywhere, the same pattern emerges: a reverence for light, a focus on ascension, and a belief in the power of the human mind. But as time passed, the original knowledge became fragmented. Wars, conquests, and natural disasters destroyed temples and libraries. The burning of the Library of Alexandria, the collapse of the Mayan cities, the fall of Sumer, the decline of the Indus Valley, all these events contributed to the loss of ancient wisdom. Yet the Emerald Tablets claim that the most important knowledge was never lost. It was hidden. Encoded in symbols, rituals, and myths, it was preserved by secret orders and passed down to those deemed worthy. These orders, though criticized and misunderstood, played a crucial role in safeguarding humanity's spiritual heritage. They acted as caretakers of knowledge too dangerous or too advanced for the general public. Thoth describes how he foresaw the fall of civilizations and took precautions to ensure the survival of key teachings. He claims to have created hidden chambers beneath the earth, filled with records, artifacts, and technologies from his lost homeland. These chambers, he says, are guarded by advanced beings who maintain the energetic balance of the planet. He calls this sanctuary the Hall of Amenti, a place beyond death where ancient masters rest in suspended animation. According to the tablets, Amenti exists in a state of timelessness, accessible only to those who have mastered the art of vibrational alignment. Thoth claims to have returned to Amenti many times, renewing his life force and continuing his mission throughout multiple epochs. This concept may sound mythical, yet it shares similarities with legends from various cultures. The Tibetan tradition speaks of Shambhala, a hidden realm of enlightened beings. The Maya believed in Xibalba, an underworld where gods reside. Native American tribes tell stories of sacred caves where ancestors dwell in eternal light. Even in Western esotericism, there is the idea of an inner earth or hollow earth inhabited by advanced races. These myths, though separated by geography and time, may reflect a shared memory of a real place, a subterranean sanctuary built by beings who once walked openly among humans. The Emerald Tablets also speak of a future time when the knowledge hidden within Amenti will be revealed. Thoth hints that this revelation will occur when humanity reaches a certain level of consciousness, a threshold that allows us to wield ancient wisdom responsibly. He describes this moment as the dawn of a new cycle, one where humanity rises from darkness into light. According to the tablets, the transition will be marked by turmoil, upheaval, and a global awakening. People will begin to question old paradigms, seek deeper truths, and reclaim their spiritual heritage. The world will undergo dramatic changes, both physically and energetically. Old systems will collapse, and new ones will emerge. This process, though difficult, is necessary for the evolution of consciousness. In many ways, this description mirrors the times we live in. The world is undergoing rapid transformation, socially, technologically, and environmentally. People are questioning institutions, exploring meditation and energy healing, and studying ancient wisdom. Scientific discoveries are challenging conventional assumptions about reality, consciousness, and the nature of the universe. The boundaries between science and spirituality are beginning to blur, revealing connections that once seemed impossible. It is as if humanity is waking up after a long sleep, sensing intuitively that there is more to reality than what we have been taught. Thoth's teachings suggest that this awakening is not accidental. It is part of a cosmic cycle, guided by forces larger than we can comprehend. He describes humanity as a bridge between dimensions, a species capable of anchoring higher frequencies into the physical world. This role, he says, is both a privilege and a responsibility. When humans awaken to their true nature, they can reshape reality, heal the planet, and usher in an age of harmony. But if they remain trapped in fear and ignorance, they become vulnerable to manipulation by darker forces. The choice, according to Thoth, lies within each individual. This theme, humanity as a pivotal force, appears throughout the Emerald Tablets. Thoth emphasizes that humans possess extraordinary potential, far beyond what we realize. He describes the human body as a temple, the mind as a tool, and the soul as a spark of divine light. He insists that by mastering our thoughts, emotions, and energies, we can transcend the limitations of the physical world. This idea resonates with modern research into neuroplasticity, quantum physics, and epigenetics. Scientists are discovering that the mind can influence the brain, that observation affects reality, and that genes respond to environmental and emotional factors. These discoveries hint at a deeper truth, one that ancient traditions have long understood. Consciousness shapes reality. The Emerald Tablets also describe a cosmology where the universe is alive, an interconnected web of energy, intelligence, and consciousness. Thoth outlines a hierarchy of beings, from lower dimensional entities to higher dimensional masters. He describes a cosmic cycle of creation, maintenance, and dissolution, governed by universal laws. He speaks of a grand design, a blueprint woven into the fabric of existence. This worldview is echoed in many spiritual traditions, from Kabbalah to Taoism to Sufism. It is also reflected in modern scientific theories, such as the holographic universe and unified field theory. The parallels are too strong to ignore. Yet, despite these revelations, Thoth remains elusive. His identity is shrouded in mystery, his origins hidden beyond the veil of myth. Was he a survivor of Atlantis? A being from another dimension? A messenger sent by higher cosmic forces? Or was he something even more extraordinary? An embodiment of an archetype that appears whenever humanity reaches a critical threshold. The Emerald Tablets provide hints, but never confirm anything outright. They leave us with questions, challenges, and invitations to explore deeper. The most profound aspect of Thoth's teachings is their emphasis on self-discovery. He warns against blindly following external authorities, whether religious, political, or spiritual. He urges individuals to seek truth within themselves, to cultivate inner light, and to align with cosmic order. He insists that enlightenment is not a gift granted by gods, but a state achieved through discipline, intention, and awareness. This message is timeless. It resonates as strongly today as it did thousands of years ago. As you journey deeper into the tablets, a curious realization begins to form. The wisdom they contain is not meant to be understood intellectually. It is meant to be experienced. The symbols, metaphors, and teachings are catalysts, keys designed to unlock deeper layers of consciousness. They challenge you to think differently, to see the world not as a random collection of events, but as a coherent narrative with purpose and direction. They invite you to step beyond the confines of materialism and explore the vast realms of the unseen. And once you step into those realms, the world as you know it begins to change. There is a point in following the trail of Thoth where the ancient world no longer feels ancient at all. Instead, it begins to feel like a half-remembered dream, something you have walked through before, but forgotten upon waking. The emerald tablets speak with such conviction about cycles, consciousness, dimensions, and hidden forces that you begin to sense the text is not recounting myths, but describing a reality that still exists around us, just out of reach, just beyond the veil. And as the narrative deepens, Thoth's presence becomes less like that of a distant figure from a forgotten civilization, and more like a guide whispering across the boundary of time, inviting humanity not to look backward, but to look inward and forward at once. The deeper layers of the tablets focus on ascension, not in the religious sense, but in the sense of evolution, expansion, and transformation of consciousness. Thoth describes a path that allows an individual to transcend the limitations of the physical body and move freely between dimensions. He insists that this ability was once common among early humans, a remnant of their connection to the luminous teachers who guided them after the Great Cataclysm. Over time, fear, materialism, and the influence of dark forces caused this ability to fade. But the potential, he says, remains dormant within every human being, waiting to be reawakened. The tablets outline practices that resemble a blend of meditation, visualization, breathwork, and energetic alignment. Thoth describes the human body as a vessel capable of holding vast amounts of light that, when properly cultivated, transforms the body into a bridge between dimensions. He speaks of raising the fire within, a phrase mirrored in the Kundalini traditions of India, the Qi practices of China, and the shamanic rituals of indigenous cultures worldwide. This inner fire is not metaphorical. It is an energetic phenomenon that, when activated, elevates the vibrational frequency of the practitioner, enabling them to perceive realities beyond the physical. What is remarkable is that modern science is beginning to uncover aspects of this phenomenon. Researchers studying altered states of consciousness, near-death experiences, and advanced meditation techniques are finding that the brain operates differently when in deep states of awareness. Gamma waves spike, neurotransmitters shift, the sense of self dissolves. People report experiences that mirror the descriptions in the tablets, visions of light, encounters with non-physical beings, sensations of leaving the body, and a profound sense of interconnectedness. These parallels suggest that the techniques described by Thoth were not mystical metaphors, but instructions for accessing latent abilities of the human mind. But the tablets go further. Thoth claims that through disciplined practice, an individual can achieve immortality, not in the literal sense of living forever in the same body, but in the sense of transcending physical death altogether. He describes a process where consciousness detaches from the body and moves into higher dimensions, returning only when necessary. This ability, he says, was mastered by the ancient masters who dwell in the Hall of Amenti. They exist in a state of suspended animation, neither fully alive nor fully dead, maintaining their connection to the physical world while operating primarily in higher realms. This concept mirrors the Tibetan practice of rainbow body, where an advanced practitioner dissolves their physical form into light. It also resembles the immortality traditions of Taoist adepts, who sought to refine their energies to the point where the physical body becomes a vessel of pure light. The tablets describe Thoth performing this process multiple times, leaving his body, traveling through the planes, and returning rejuvenated. He insists that death is not a final end, but a transition, a shift in frequency. He warns humanity not to fear death, for fear anchors consciousness to the lower realms. Instead, he urges individuals to cultivate inner light so that when death comes, they can ascend to higher dimensions rather than becoming trapped in the shadow realms, where dark entities feed on unresolved emotions. This view of death echoes the beliefs of ancient Egyptians who placed great emphasis on the journey of the soul after death. Their elaborate rituals, spells, and guidance texts were designed to help the soul navigate the afterlife and avoid the traps set by hostile forces. But while describing these metaphysical processes, Thoth also warns of a danger unique to the current age: the misuse of knowledge. He explains that advanced technologies and energetic practices can be destructive if wielded without wisdom. The fall of his homeland, he says, resulted not only from a natural cataclysm, but from the arrogance of its people who misused sacred knowledge for personal gain. They forgot their connection to the cosmic order, using vibrational technologies for manipulation rather than healing. This imbalance created energetic distortions that weakened their civilization, making it vulnerable to external forces. The tablets emphasize that knowledge without wisdom leads to destruction, a pattern echoed in many ancient traditions. The Atlantean myths of the Greeks, the fall of Lemuria in Pacific legends, the destruction of the Fourth World in Hopi lore, all tell the same story. Civilizations rise, harness powerful energies, lose their moral compass, and fall. This warning feels eerily relevant today. Modern humanity stands on the brink of scientific breakthroughs that could alter the nature of reality as we know it. Quantum computing, artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, and energy manipulation technologies are advancing at unprecedented rates. While these tools hold great promise, they also carry the potential for immense harm. Thoth's teachings suggest that such moments in history are not random. They are checkpoints in the cycle of consciousness, moments when humanity must choose whether to ascend or repeat the mistakes of the past. Yet the tablets do not merely warn, they offer a path forward. They teach that the key to navigating this moment lies not in external technology, but in inner transformation. Thoth insists that humanity must rediscover its connection to light, cultivate higher awareness, and align with cosmic laws. He outlines 7 cosmic principles that govern the universe, principles echoed in Hermeticism and embedded in many spiritual traditions. These principles, mentalism, correspondence, vibration, polarity, rhythm, cause and effect, and gender, form the backbone of Thoth's teachings. They describe a universe in which everything is connected, everything is conscious, and everything moves in cycles. Of these principles, vibration is the most central. Thoth asserts that everything in the universe is made of energy, vibrating at different frequencies. Higher frequencies correspond to love, wisdom, and unity. Lower frequencies correspond to fear, ignorance, and separation. To ascend, one must raise their vibrational state. This concept is found in the mystic traditions of every culture. In Buddhism, enlightenment is described as a state of high vibration. In Christianity, the kingdom of heaven is a realm of divine light. In Hinduism, the highest state of consciousness is associated with the vibration of Om, the primordial sound of creation. Even modern physics acknowledges that matter is not solid, but composed of vibrating particles and fields. The tablets describe techniques for raising one's vibration. They emphasize breath as a tool for shifting consciousness. They highlight the power of sound, suggesting that certain frequencies can open portals to higher realms. They describe geometric patterns that act as stabilizers for consciousness. Patterns like the flower of life, the Merkaba, and the golden ratio. These shapes appear in the art and architecture of ancient civilizations across the world, suggesting a shared knowledge system. Thoth states that these patterns are reflections of the universe's underlying structure, blueprints for both physical and spiritual creation. But the tablets also reveal that raising one's vibration is not enough. To truly ascend, one must master the forces of polarity. Thoth explains that everything in the universe has an opposite, and these opposites are not enemies, but extremes of the same essence: light and dark, order and chaos, life and death. They exist to balance one another. The key, he says, is not to eliminate one side, but to harmonize them within oneself. This concept, though mystical, aligns with modern psychology. Carl Jung spoke of integrating the shadow, the unconscious aspects of the self, as essential for inner wholeness. The Taoist concept of yin and yang describes a dynamic balance between opposing forces. Even in physics, particles have antiparticles, and the interplay between these forces shapes the behavior of the universe. Thoth insists that humans must learn to navigate polarity consciously. Those who cling to extremes become trapped in lower dimensions, vulnerable to manipulation. Those who balance their inner forces open the path to higher awareness. This path, he says, requires courage, discipline, and humility. It requires confronting one's fears, letting go of attachments, and embracing the unknown. It requires recognizing the interconnectedness of all life and acting with compassion. One of the most profound ideas in the tablets is the concept of the sons of light and the sons of darkness. These are not literal beings, but archetypal forces within every individual. The sons of light represent wisdom, unity, and higher consciousness. The sons of darkness represent ignorance, separation, and lower consciousness. The battle between these forces is not external, but internal. Every choice, every thought, every action contributes to one side or the other. Thoth teaches that humanity must awaken the Son of Light within themselves to ascend to the next cycle. This battle is reflected in mythologies worldwide, the struggle between order and chaos, light and dark, good and evil. But the tablets make it clear that this struggle is not about destroying darkness, but transforming it. Darkness, Thoth says, is simply light not yet realized. The tablets describe a coming shift, a moment when the frequency of the earth will rise, forcing all beings to adjust. Those who raise their vibration will ascend to higher realms. Those who do not will remain bound to lower dimensions. This shift, Thoth suggests, is part of a cosmic cycle and cannot be stopped. It is a moment of cleansing, transformation, and renewal. He hints that signs of this shift will appear in the form of natural events, societal upheaval, and a collective awakening of intuition. Many spiritual traditions speak of such a moment. The Hopi call it the purification time. The Maya described it as the end of a cycle. In Hinduism, it is the transition from Kali Yuga to a new Satya Yuga. Even in modern science, researchers speak of the Earth's magnetic field weakening, climate patterns changing, and human consciousness evolving rapidly. Whether these connections are coincidental or meaningful, the parallels are striking. Thoth paints a picture of humanity on the brink of transformation, a moment when the veil will thin and ancient knowledge will return. He states that the emerald tablets are not relics of the past, but messages for the future, encoded in a way that ensures they become relevant at the right time. Their re-emergence in modern consciousness may be a sign that the shift is approaching. As you reflect on these teachings, the world begins to look different. You start to see patterns in the chaos, order in the disorder. You begin to sense that humanity is not drifting randomly through history, but moving through a cosmic curriculum. And in that curriculum, Thoth stands as a guide, not a god, not a myth, but a reminder of what humanity once was and what it can become again. If the Emerald Tablets are to be believed, the greatest truth hidden from humanity is not the existence of ancient civilizations, advanced technologies, or other dimensions. The greatest truth is that everything needed for ascension, wisdom, power, and connection to the cosmos, already exists within each individual. The path is not found in temples or tablets, but in the awakening of the inner light. And if that light is allowed to rise, Thoth says, humanity will remember what it has forgotten. It will reclaim what it has lost. It will step across the threshold into a new age of harmony, intelligence, and cosmic awareness. And the cycles that once trapped humanity in endless rise and fall will finally give way to a path of unbroken ascension. But only if we choose it. There is a sensation that arrives only at the very end of a long journey into forbidden history. A feeling that the story you have been unraveling is not ending at all, but looping back to its beginning in a way that feels impossibly familiar. As the teachings attributed to Thoth reach their final arc, they do not conclude with triumph, tragedy, or closure. Instead, they dissolve into something more unsettling and more liberating. The realization that the Emerald Tablets are not a record of the past, nor a prophecy of the future, but a mirror for the present. A living conversation between the ancient and the modern, between the cosmic and the human. They are a reminder that history is not a straight line, but a spiral, and on that spiral, humanity stands once again at a turning point that Thoth must have foreseen. In the closing passages of the tablets, Thoth speaks with a directness that feels different from the cryptic style of earlier sections. The tone is urgent, almost intimate, as though addressing a reader he has been waiting for across centuries. He describes a time when humanity will rediscover the lost sciences of the past, not through temples or priests, but through its own awakening. He speaks of an age when knowledge once reserved for initiates will become accessible to all who seek it. He warns that this accessibility is both a blessing and a danger, for power without wisdom can destroy as easily as it can elevate. Yet he insists that this moment of awakening is inevitable, guided by forces older than the earth itself. Thoth describes humanity as a species on the cusp of remembering its cosmic origins. He explains that the human soul did not arise from the physical world, but descended into it from a higher realm, bringing with it the potential to ascend again. This idea, echoed in Hermeticism, Gnosticism, and many mystical traditions, suggests that humans are not simply biological beings, but fragments of a vast cosmic intelligence. Thoth insists that each soul carries within it a spark of the primeval light that shaped the universe. This spark, he says, is the key to all higher abilities, intuition, telepathy, astral travel, and the ability to perceive the hidden structures of reality. The Emerald Tablets emphasize that the journey of the soul is not linear. It moves through cycles of incarnation, learning, forgetting, and remembering. Each life is an opportunity to refine consciousness, dissolve fear, and expand awareness. The physical world, with all its challenges and illusions, functions as a training ground. Thoth calls it the realm of veils, a place where souls learn to see through the illusions of separation and rediscover their unity with all things. This view aligns with many spiritual traditions that describe the physical world as a school for the soul. Yet Thoth goes further. He insists that Earth is not only a school, but a gateway, a portal through which souls can ascend to higher planes. In the final sections, he describes the structure of the universe in terms that sound astonishingly similar to modern theories. He speaks of layers of reality, each vibrating at a different frequency. He describes how beings in higher dimensions exist in states of pure light, unbound by physical form. He explains that these beings are not separate from us. They are our future selves, evolved versions of humanity that have mastered the lessons of the lower realms. This concept, though mystical, mirrors ideas in theoretical physics about parallel dimensions and higher dimensional consciousness. It also echoes ancient teachings from India, Tibet, and indigenous cultures that describe luminous beings guiding the evolution of humanity. Thoth insists that ascension is not a reward, but a natural process. It occurs when a soul has accumulated enough light, enough awareness, compassion, and inner mastery to resonate with higher dimensions. He warns, however, that forces exist in the lower realms that seek to prevent this ascension. These forces, which he calls the shadows, feed on fear, confusion, and ignorance. They thrive in environments where humans are disconnected from their inner light. This idea appears in Gnostic texts as the archons, in Middle Eastern traditions as the jinn, and in indigenous lore as trickster spirits. Whether literal or symbolic, the message is clear. The battle for human consciousness is ongoing, and every individual participates in it. Thoth describes techniques for protecting oneself from these shadow forces. He emphasizes the power of intention, saying that a focused mind is the strongest shield against manipulation. He describes the role of breath in anchoring one's presence and the role of light in dissolving fear. These teachings echo the practices of many spiritual traditions, suggesting a shared understanding of how to navigate the unseen realms. Thoth explains that fear lowers one's vibration, making it easier for shadow entities to attach themselves. Love, clarity, and curiosity, on the other hand, raise one's vibration and strengthen the connection to higher realms. Yet the tablets do not focus solely on individual ascension. They describe a collective awakening, a moment when humanity as a whole rises to a higher level of consciousness. Thoth refers to this as a turning of the cycles, a cosmic event that occurs when Earth aligns with certain energies in the galaxy. Modern astronomy speaks of cycles such as precession, solar activity, and galactic alignment that influence Earth's environment and magnetic field. Ancient cultures across the world spoke of ages, golden, silver, bronze, iron, that rise and fall in harmony with cosmic rhythms. The Emerald Tablets suggest that humanity is approaching the end of a dark cycle and the beginning of a new age of light. Thoth describes signs that will herald this shift. There will be turmoil, social, environmental, and energetic. Old systems will collapse as new ones emerge. Technologies will advance rapidly, revealing truths about the nature of reality. People will experience spontaneous awakenings, intuitive insights, vivid dreams, and heightened sensitivity. Children will be born with abilities that challenge conventional understanding. This description mirrors what many people observe today. Around the world, individuals report sudden spiritual experiences, synchronicities, and a sense that time itself is accelerating. Scientists discover phenomena that blur the line between matter and consciousness. Social structures built on fear and control begin to crumble. Whether these events mark the beginning of a new cycle is impossible to say, but the parallels are striking. In the final passages of the tablets, Thoth speaks directly to the future generations of humanity. His words carry a tone of profound compassion and responsibility. He urges humanity to use knowledge wisely, to cultivate inner stillness, and to remember its cosmic heritage. He warns that the path of ascension is not easy. It requires discipline, humility, and a willingness to let go of old beliefs. It requires learning to listen, not to external authorities, but to the inner voice that speaks from beyond the realm of thought. That voice, he says, is the echo of the primeval light within each soul. He emphasizes the importance of unity. He explains that division is an illusion created by the lower dimensions. All beings, he says, are expressions of the same consciousness, exploring different facets of the same infinite reality. Conflict arises only when individuals forget this unity. As humanity awakens, Thoth says, the boundaries between nations, religions, and identities will dissolve. People will begin to see themselves not as separate beings, but as interconnected expressions of the cosmos. This vision may seem idealistic, yet it reflects a trend seen across the world as more people embrace global perspectives and shared humanity. Thoth concludes by describing a future where humanity reclaims its place among the cosmic civilizations. He hints at a network of advanced beings who travel between dimensions and star systems, guided by principles of harmony, curiosity, and compassion. He suggests that humanity's awakening will open the door to contact with these beings, not through spacecraft, but through consciousness. This idea, echoed in the writings of mystics and modern researchers alike, proposes that advanced civilizations communicate through frequencies rather than technology. If true, then the key to interstellar contact lies not in engineering, but in expanding human consciousness. Throughout the final teachings, Thoth returns repeatedly to one central idea: light. Not light in the physical sense, but light as a metaphor for awareness, understanding, and love. He describes light as the essence of the universe, the thread that connects all beings across all dimensions. He urges humanity to cultivate light within themselves, to become beacons in the darkness. This metaphor appears across spiritual traditions: the inner flame, the divine spark, the Christ light, the Atman. It symbolizes the awakening of the soul and the return to cosmic unity. As the teachings draw to a close, a subtle shift occurs. The narrative stops describing cosmic events and begins addressing the reader directly. Thoth speaks as though standing just out of view, watching across the ages. He says that he remains present, not in body, but in consciousness. He describes how he continues to guide those who seek truth, appearing in dreams, visions, and moments of deep intuition. This presence, he says, is not unique to him. All ascended beings who have walked the earth remain connected to humanity, offering guidance when called upon. This idea aligns with the concept of spiritual guides found in countless traditions. It also reflects the experiences of individuals who report encounters with luminous beings during meditation, near-death experiences, or moments of crisis. The final lines of the Emerald Tablets carry an emotion rarely felt in ancient texts, a blend of hope, responsibility, and anticipation. Thoth speaks of watching humanity rise, of waiting for the moment when the children of earth remember who they are. He encourages the reader to continue the journey of awakening, to embody the principles of light, and to trust the unfolding of cosmic cycles. He ends with a promise that those who walk the path of light will never walk alone, for the universe itself will rise to meet them. And so the story does not end with the fall of ancient civilizations, nor with the rise of future ones. It ends with a choice that has always existed and will always exist, the choice to awaken, the choice to seek truth, the choice to align with the light that exists within each soul. Humanity stands at the threshold of a new era, just as Thoth once stood at the threshold of an old one. The tools, teachings, and reminders have been given. The cycles have turned. The veil is thinning. All that remains is for each individual to decide whether to step into the light of the new age or remain in the shadows of the old. The Emerald Tablets do not tell us what will happen next, because that future depends on the choices we make. They simply remind us of who we once were, who we are now, and who we have the potential to become. And perhaps, in the quiet spaces between thought, you can almost hear Thoth's voice, ancient, eternal, patient, whispering across the dimensions. Rise, seekers of light. The time has come to remember.